911. Please help. A trainer is being dragged. Please, hurry.
She was an expert trainer, a rising star in the world of marine performance. For over 7 years, Jessica Radcliffe devoted her life to the creatures she loved most. Powerful, intelligent, unpredictable. But on one February afternoon, in front of a live audience, everything changed. The water churned, the trainer vanished, and the truth would shake the industry to its core. What happened that day was not a freak accident. It was the breaking point in a story decades in the making, a story hidden beneath the waves, behind the smiles, and beneath the surface of the show. Welcome to Animal Attacks, where we uncover the real stories behind nature's most dangerous encounters. Like, share and subscribe now, so you do not miss the truth behind the headlines. Before the tragedy, before the headlines, Jessica Radcliffe was just a young girl with a dream. A dream that would take her from a small town far from the sea into the heart of one of the most dangerous jobs in the world. Long before she ever touched the water with an orca, Jessica Radcliffe was just a little girl, hundreds of miles from the nearest ocean. She grew up in a place where summer smelled of fresh-cut grass, where the horizon was fields, not waves. But even then, her heart belonged to the sea. While other kids played house or rode bikes, Jessica memorized marine mammal facts. She knew every dolphin species by heart, and every orca at Sealand Marine Park by name. Even though she'd never seen one in person. On her 13th birthday, her parents decided to change that. They packed the car, drove for hours, and took her to Sealand Marine Park on the Florida coast. For Jessica, it was like stepping into another world. She saw her first orca up close, black and white, impossibly large, slicing through the water with grace. She watched as trainers stood on their backs, dove alongside them, and rode the waves in perfect synchrony. And something inside her clicked. This wasn't just a dream anymore, this was a calling. In that moment, she knew she wouldn't just visit the sea, she would live it. Someday, she would be the one in the wetsuit, the one giving the cues, the one swimming beside giants. Years later, Jessica Radcliffe would walk into Sealand not as a guest, but as a trainer. And the path to that pool would change her life, and eventually, end it. Becoming a marine mammal trainer was never something you just stepped into. It was earned, through cold mornings, sore muscles, and a quiet kind of persistence. At Sealand, entry-level meant more than cleaning fish buckets. You learned the rhythms of the animals without even touching them. You memorized their behaviors, their moods, their subtle tells. For months, she watched from the sidelines. The splashes, the whistles, the bond between human and whale. It was an unspoken promise. Earn their trust, and maybe, one day, they'll let you in. When the promotion came, it was like stepping onto another planet. From scrubbing floors to leading shows, applause thundering in your chest, the leap was dizzying. Her philosophy was simple: patience, trust, and enrichment. You didn't just command an animal, you earned a conversation with it. Iceland, 1983. The frigid North Atlantic, a place where pods of wild orcas roamed in tightly knit families, each calf learning the ancient rhythms of the sea from its elders. But on this day, the ocean's silence was broken. One young male, smaller, yet strong, tries to keep up with his mother as the net closes in. They drove them into shallow waters, chasing, hurting, until there was nowhere left to run. The young male would be torn from his pod, never to see them again. He was named Titan. At just 2 years old, his world shrank from miles of open ocean to a pool barely twice his own length. And for the first time, he learned what it meant to circle endlessly, not because he wanted to, but because there was no way out. Confined animals adapt, but not always in ways we understand. Frustration can turn inward or lash outward. In those early years, reports noted disruptive behavior. Titan clashed with tankmates, sometimes violently. He learned the hierarchy of captivity and how to fight for space in a world without escape routes. In 1991, Titan's name made headlines for the first time. A trainer lost their life during what the park called a misunderstood interaction. Official statements painted it as a tragic accident, nothing more. Officials assure the public there is no ongoing danger to staff or visitors behind closed doors. Some knew the truth was more complicated. But in the business of entertainment, the show must go on. He had already felt the taste of danger, and no one believed lightning would strike twice. The music swells with a low, growing rumble, cutting sharply to silence as the chapter ends. By the mid-1980s, Sealand of the Pacific had a star. 8,000 pounds of black and white muscle. An apex predator disguised as a performer. His name was Titan. To the paying public, Titan was magnificent, charismatic, even gentle. But inside the park, whispers painted a different picture. He had a reputation, refusing food, ignoring cues, and, on more than one occasion, pushing trainers right to the edge of their comfort zone. Jessica Radcliffe wasn't intimidated. If anything, she saw it as a challenge. Where others saw danger, she saw an opportunity. Day after day, she worked to earn his trust. Her secret? Patience, consistency, and an unshakable belief that Titan could be reached. For a while, it seemed to work. Titan followed her signals, accepted her food, and, in rare moments, seemed almost playful. But Titan was still Titan. One afternoon, mid-training, he broke from the script. A sudden turn, a powerful tail slap. Water exploded over the platform. Jessica laughed it off. The audience thought it was part of the show. But the other trainers exchanged glances. They'd seen that look before, a flash of unpredictability just beneath the surface. For Jessica, it was just another day with Titan. For everyone else, it was a warning. Ambient crowd noise swells in, the sound of hundreds of people packed into Sealand's small stadium. The winter air is crisp, the February sun spilling over the pool's blue surface. We hear faint laughter, the rustle of jackets, and the splash of water as the show is already underway. It was meant to be just another routine, one Jessica had performed dozens of times before. But on this day, every movement, every breath, was quietly leading towards something no one could predict. Jessica, smiling, waves to the crowd, her black and blue wetsuit glistening as she prepares for her finale segment. It's the part the audience loves most, the daring sequence between trainer and Orca, rehearsed for months, timed down to the second. First came the leaps. Perfect, flawless, the kind of textbook execution that made Titan the park's prize attraction. The crowd roared with approval. We see Titan arc through the air, a mountain of muscle and grace, splashing down so close the front row is soaked. Jessica laughs and points, encouraging the audience to clap louder. But then a pause. Titan circles slowly near the center of the pool, his dorsal fin slicing the water like a blade. Jessica, perched on the slide-out platform, raises her arm for the final stunt cue. The camera lingers on Titan's dark eye as it breaks the surface, unblinking. He doesn't move at first, just hovers. Then, with a sudden burst, he surges toward her. The crowd cheers, unaware of the hesitation that just occurred. Jessica slips into the water for the grand finale, the deep dive pass. Titan dips beneath her, disappearing into the deep. The shot holds on the shimmering ripples where she'd been moments before. At that moment, everything still looked perfect. But just below the surface, something had already changed. The crowd's applause is still echoing when it happens. 1 second. Jessica is perched gracefully on Titan's back, preparing for the finale's leap. The next, a blur of black and white beneath the surface. Titan surges upward, not for the stunt, but for her. His massive jaws snap around her ponytail. At first, it almost looks playful, like part of the show. But then, the violence of it. Jessica is yanked backward, her body arching unnaturally before disappearing under the water in an eruption of spray. From the stands, some fans are still clapping, waiting for her to reappear with that rehearsed, triumphant smile. But the trainers on deck know instantly, this isn't choreography. Their shouts slice through the noise, urgent and panicked. Jessica bursts back to the surface for a split second, her face pale, eyes wide with terror. She gasps for air, one arm flailing toward the deck, just out of reach, and then she's gone again. The water closes over her. Sound fades, replaced by the deep, suffocating thud of underwater panic. Splashes muffle into eerie echoes. The roar of the crowd blurs into background static. Somewhere in that chaos, you can still hear Titan's massive body slicing through the water, the thrash of his tail, and the desperate slaps of Jessica's hand against the surface before it vanishes for the last time. The audience is no longer cheering. They're standing, pointing, realizing they're watching a nightmare unfold in real time. 30 minutes. That's how long this nightmare would last. 30 minutes in which every second felt like an hour, and every failed rescue attempt pushed Jessica further from survival. They tried everything: food lures, sharp signal whistles, even the nets meant to corral the orca. But Titan wasn't responding to the commands he'd obeyed for years. This wasn't a show anymore. This control turned to chaos. 30 minutes. The crowd's excitement had curdled into horror. For many, this would be the first and last orca show they'd ever see. When Titan finally released her, it was too late. Paramedics rushed forward on slick concrete, their voices urgent but controlled. CPR is immediate. Compressions, breaths, compressions. The crowd is ushered out, many still crying, some in disbelief. Their day of family fun shattered in the space of half an hour. Jessica Radcliffe, 28 years old, is pronounced dead at 4:12 p.m. official cause. Drowning, complicated by blunt force trauma to her chest and limbs, and deep lacerations consistent with orca teeth. Sealand of the Pacific closes its gates before sunset. No shows, no music, no smiling trainers waving to the audience. Just the heavy quiet of a place that was once alive with applause, now under investigation. By nightfall, the first protesters are already gathering outside the park's main entrance. Hand-painted signs appear in the glow of streetlights. Free Titan. Shut Sealand down. No more orca prisons. This was no longer just a local tragedy. It was a story breaking across the globe, sparking questions not only about what happened in that pool, but about the morality of keeping apex predators in captivity at all. Authorities move in: police, safety inspectors, marine mammal experts. OSHA launches its own formal investigation, combing through staff logs, emergency response protocols, and every second of show footage from that day. The park's executives promise full cooperation, but already, behind closed doors, they're bracing for the storm. 2 weeks later, 2 weeks after Jessica Radcliffe's death, the first cracks began to show in the polished image Sealand had carefully built. Leaked internal memos revealed something the public had never been told. Titan's history was far from spotless. He'd been involved in at least 3 recorded incidents with trainers before Jessica's death. Incidents quietly logged, and just as quietly buried. Each time, the explanation was the same: trainer error or a misunderstanding. But now, there was no misunderstanding. The family of Jessica Radcliffe has filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Sealand Marine Park. The lawsuits came swiftly, and not just from Jessica's family. Former trainers, emboldened by the tragedy, stepped forward with their own stories. Public opinion shifted almost overnight. Titan's haunting black and white image became a symbol in a growing debate. Not about one trainer's death, but about whether humans and captive orcas should ever share the same water. And change came quickly. Titan was pulled from performances entirely and confined to a backstage tank, out of public view. For some, it was justice. For others, it was a sentence of solitary confinement. Jessica Radcliffe's tragic story shook the world. But her story is not the only one etched into the dark history of orca captivity. As we remember Jessica, we must also turn to another haunting chapter, that of Daniel Dukes, a young man whose life and death would ignite fierce debates about safety, respect, and the very nature of keeping wild animals confined. Years later, in the late 1990s, a different tragedy unfolded. Daniel Dukes, a 27-year-old drifter and adventurer, slipped into the marine park after closing. He hid overnight in Namu's enclosure, an orca with a notorious reputation. When staff found him the next morning, his body was draped over Namu's back, lifeless. Daniel's death sparked fierce debates about human safety, animal behavior, and the ethics of captivity. Was it reckless trespassing or a desperate act? Namu's behavior that night challenged what trainers and the public thought they knew about orcas. His story became a powerful symbol in the ongoing fight over marine mammal captivity. Jessica Radcliffe and Daniel Dukes, 2 lives lost, 2 stories forever intertwined in the conversation about the cost of keeping wild animals captive. Their legacies demand action. for the safety of humans who work with these magnificent creatures, for the dignity and well-being of the animals themselves. It's time to ask ourselves, should these animals be held captive for our entertainment? And what can we do to prevent more tragedies? Both reminders that captivity isn't a simple story of entertainment. It's a complex, often heartbreaking tale of wild power, human ambition, and the cost paid in silence beneath the waves. If their stories moved you, if you believe it's time for change, join the conversation. Support organizations fighting for marine mammal freedom. Demand transparency and accountability from parks that hold these incredible creatures captive. Subscribe, share this video, comment below where you are watching from and your thoughts on these tragic incidents. And never forget the lives lost in the shadows of the show. Together, we can honor Jessica Radcliffe and Daniel Dukes, and work toward a future where wild animals belong in the wild. Thanks for watching, and see you in our next video.